Okay. So selling the call. You're short the call. So break even would be strike price plus premium. So that's
You're correct. 183. You're correct.
And then as far as max loss is unlimited, and then max.
And that is a problem. There is no ceiling in this position. So you're absolutely right. And the max gain, if you're right, Apple's 170 or lower, and the contract expires. And you get to go neener, neener, neener. You get to keep the money. So there's a floor here at 170, but the problem is there is no ceiling. You know, options are all about floors and ceilings. So as your broker, I say, listen, don't be a dumb bear. Don't be a dumb bear. Why don't we take part of your money, your 13, and buy a higher strike call just in case? Let's put in a ceiling at maybe 185. So we're going to buy one. Hey, let me get the right font size here. One Apple March 185 call at 4. So test question number 1, I call it don't hate the 8. There are 8 things you need to know about a spread. Spread means difference. And so we're spreading the difference in the premiums. So test question number 1 is, can you tell me that you are looking at a spread? So let's put this up here. You got to be able to identify a spread. A spread is when you're long and short the same type of contract. So once we've identified the spread, the next thing we got to do is determine whether we're looking at a debit or a credit spread. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to net the premiums. So is that $5 out or dollars in? Excuse me, that 4. Is that $4 out or dollars in?
Out.
Right. And is that $13 out or dollars in?
That is in.
And so is this a debit or a credit spread? So that's test question number 2. We'll put that over here.
Credit spread.
That's right. It's a credit spread because we've got more money in than money out. And as we said, it would be foolish for you to do the naked call because that's just dumb, right? Because you would have unlimited loss potential. All right, so we've determined it's a debit or credit spread. We said credit. The next thing we have to do, let's just put that here. The net credit is 9. Let's put that there. Boom. That's 9 points. And let's put a little line there. Okay, the next thing we've got to be able to do is test question number 3 is determine whether we want the contracts to expire or exercise. So are you going to be happy or sad if I'm your broker and I call you and I say, Amato, these contracts expired? Would you be happy or would you be sad?
Believe happy, right? Because you got
you get to keep the money, right? Whenever you collect money, the best case is you agree to be a potential victim and nobody victimizes you. That's the best case scenario, right? So, whoop, that's going to be your max gain. Now, I think you're kind of a jerk of a customer. If you say, hey, Dean, had I done the naked calls, I would have made 13. I go, yeah, but you would have been taking all kinds of risk. This is a much smarter way to take the money without taking all the risk, right? I mean, the spreads are all about the floors and the ceilings here. Test question number 4. Do we want the difference in the premiums to narrow, get smaller, Or do we want them to get bigger? Do we want them to narrow or widen? Again, hardest part to get, don't really need to get it because this goes together all the time. But it's kind of like betting on a sports game, right? In a sports game, you can bet on the spread, the difference in the scores. And some people want it to be in between that, and some people want it to be outside of that. And so if I call you and you say, hey, Dean, what's going on right now? I said, well, I'm pleased to report, Amato, that the spread has narrowed from 9 to 6. Right now, we could close it out for 6, and you would make 3, right? So that would be good news, right? The most it could narrow to would be 0. It wouldn't be good if I call you and say, hey, Amato, the spread is 11, and you'd be down 2. Hardest part to get. Don't need to get it because credit, expire, narrow goes together all the time. You know, a way to remember this is credit has 6 letters, expire has 6 letters, and narrow has 6 letters. So we can get that first part right, we can rock and roll because it's either going to be credit, expire, narrow, or debit, exercise, wide. Now, the whole point of a spread is I'm saying that I want to play between here and here, and that I don't want to play no more. All of the action in a spread takes place between the strike prices. And so whatever the gain and the loss equals, it's going to be 15 points. So test taking trick, we know as a test taker, when they offer me a gain and a loss, I can eliminate anything offered to me that doesn't add up to 15. Whatever the gain and loss is, it has to be 15. The gain and the loss always equals the difference in the strikes. That's the whole point of a spread. The whole point of the spread is I'm saying I want to play between 170 and 185, and then I don't want to play no more. So there's 15 points to be made or lost in this spread. Do you remember this from, math in grade school? Solving for the unknown. 9 plus something equals 15. Now, if you don't get that the gain and the loss, so where we're working, I told you there's 8 things you got to know. And we got to know max gain, and we got to know max loss. And we said that whatever these 2 numbers are, the max gain, the max loss, they equal the difference in the strikes. That's the whole point of the spread. You know, some people are visual people. Yeah, I can do that, but one thing at a time, right? One thing at a time. Okay, so if we're doing a visual representation of this, there's our floor, there's our ceiling, and what we're saying, Amato, is we want to play between 170 and 185, and then we don't want to play no more. All the action takes place between the strikes. Here is the market price of Apple. Here's the market price of the Apple, right? And we're playing between here and here. So I'm telling you that the gain and the loss equals the difference in the strikes. Now, we already have one of these numbers. We already have one of these numbers. We've already got that our max gain here is 9 points. Now, what I mean by that is we got to remember that, that would be $900, but that's our max gain. And I just told you that the gain and the loss equals the difference in the strikes, right? Now, the reason I'm spending time on this, Amato, is because if you don't know this, then you got to memorize yuck. That the maximum loss in a credit spread is the difference in the strikes less the net credit. Ugh. The max loss is the difference in the strikes, 15 minus the net credit. I think it's easier to just say, okay, well, 9 plus something, 6 is the loss. I just think that's easier. But, however you get there, you need to get there. Right? So 6 is going to be our max loss. The gain and loss and spread always equals the difference in the strikes. That's the whole point of the spread, is that we're going to play between here and here, and then we don't want to play no more. That is the whole point of the spread. Right, so our max loss here is 6 points. The gain and the loss equals the difference in the strikes. Okay, so I said there's 8 test questions about a spread. And we said the other test question, number 7, is what is the break even? Test taking trick, the break even has to be somewhere between 170 and 185. That alone can get us a 50-50, right? Because there's going to be 2 that are in here. Now we have 2 memory aid devices for doing break evens and the spreads. And one is CAL, and that stands for call, add to the lower. The other is push, put, subtract from the higher. So what memory aid device are we going to use to get the break even in this spread? Are we going to use CAL, call, add to the lower? Or are we going to use push, put, subtract from the higher?
I want to say push.
And we're going to use call, add to the lower. This is a call spread. This
Oh,
is
I
a
see.
call spread. So we're going to use call, add to the lower. Now, again, remember, without doing the spread, you would have been foolish because you could have made 13. You were correct. You told me the break-even was 183 when it was just a basic option position. But we don't have a 13-point cushion anymore. Right? We gave up part of our 13 Amato, and what we did was we spent 4 of it. So now our cushion's only 9. So the break-even is going to be 170 plus 9. Our break-even is 179. Not 183, because remember, that was the naked call. No, here we spent some of our money. By the way, it doesn't matter if it's a debit or credit, doesn't matter. We add to the lower. So we're always going to add to the lower. So here, we're going to take the lower strike. Now, I don't mean lower on my dry erase board. I'm recording this as well, Nico. So you just now started recording. So you're, it'll be on the channel and you can get the recording there as well. But you're going to be recording from the bottom. I'll rerun it here in a minute. Net premium. Okay, so the last thing we got to be able to do on a spread, that's why I call it don't hate the 8. The last thing we got to be able to do on the spread is determine whether the spread is bullish or bearish. Whether this spread is bullish or bearish. And why that's important is we need to know where we need it to be in relationship to our break even, right? Here's our break even. We'll put that in here, 179. And do we want Apple to be above 179 or below 179? Where do we want Apple to be in relationship to that?
I believe below.
Yeah, this is a bearish spread, right? The larger premium dominates the position. The larger premium dominates the position. So what you're really doing here is selling that call, but you're a smart bear. Motto, as I always say, don't be a dumb bear. Don't be a dumb bear, right? Be a smart bear. The larger premium dominates the position. All right, so let's reset. Let's reset. And we'll just go through this again. And we said, don't be a dumb bear. And Hiramato is a very dumb bear. Right? That's a naked call. So in spreads, what you're doing is, again, spreading is the difference in the premiums. And a debit spread, you're lowering your out-of-pocket cost. And a credit spread, you're capping your risk. Right? So that's what's going on. Right? So a debit spread, you're say, I'm going to sell the other strike to help me pay for this. This is here that we just said this is stupid, right? Why would you want to, make 13 and lose everything? The conversation isn't testable. What is testable is don't hate the 8. You got to be able to hate things. I say, Amato, why don't we take part of our money and buy a higher strike just in case? Let's put in a ceiling here at 185. Now, the worst case scenario is if this blows up on us, at least we can call it away at 105, 185. We have a choice to buy at 185, deliver at 170. We're still a loser. But, we only lose 15 less the premium, which is, much better than losing everything. None of that is testable. What's testable is, can you tell me that you're looking at a straddle and a combination and a condor, a butterfly, a platypus, an alligator, a flamingo? It's a spread. Right? That's test question number one. Now, even if that wasn't a test question, I just told you it is. But even if it wasn't, you can't identify it. You're not going to be able to, you're just going to be staring at your screen and going, I don't know. So once you've identified it as a spread, the next thing we got to do is determine debit or credit. And the way we do that is we net the premiums. If we get this right, we can rock and roll because we know credit, expire, narrow. We've got our gain. And if we get debit, we know debit, exercise, widen, and we've got our loss. So this is really a key piece of the analysis. Here we netted the premiums and we had more money in than out, and that is called a credit spread. And when we have credit spreads, when we sell options, we want them to expire so we can go neener, neener, neener and keep the money. So if they expire here, I told you you're kind of being a jerk, but I mean, if they expire, you go, Dean, had I done the naked calls, I would have made 13 points. I go, well, true, but you would have been taking all kinds of risks. So yeah, now Amato, they expire, you only make 9. But making 9 and not losing everything is better than making 13 and potentially losing everything. Hardest part to get is this concept of widen and narrow. Don't need to get it, but we're referring to the difference in the premiums. So if you call me, you say, hey, Dean, what's the difference now? I say it's 5. So what I'm telling you, Amato, is we could close this out for 5 and you'd have 4 left over. If I tell you the difference is 11, we close it out, you're going to lose 2. Hardest part to get, don't need to get it. If you want, you can find videos of me opening and closing spreads and showing the widening and the narrow, but you don't need it to go because it gets to go together all the time, right? Credit, expire, narrow. You'll never be wrong. Credit has 6 letters, expire has 6 letters, narrow has 6 letters. Don't hate the 8. 8 test questions. The gain and the loss, we already have the gain. The gain and the loss always equals the difference in the strikes. There's 15 points to be made or lost. All the action takes place between the strikes. So if you want, you can memorize, yuck, that the maximum loss in a credit spread is the difference in the strikes less than that credit. I think that's a mental mess, personally. I think it's easier to say there's 15 points to be made or lost. I've collected 9, so I can only lose 6. And there's a visual representation. All the action takes place between 170 and 185. There's 15 points. There's a floor at 170 and a ceiling at 185. We're playing in between those two numbers. There's our gain. The gain and loss always equals the difference in the strikes. So 9 plus something equals 15. What is that something? 6. Now, after you get the menu done, then you can think about it. But, don't think about it until you get the menu done. If I buy the stock at 185, which I have a choice to do, and I deliver at 170, which I'm obliged to do, I'd lose 15 points, but I got 9 in the account already. So I lose 6, right? Next thing we got to do, don't hate the 8, we got to do break even. We're either going to use cal or push, depending on what kind of spread it is. And again, test taking trick, the break even has to be somewhere between 170, 185. You can look at your answer set now and get rid of anything that isn't offered to you, that isn't between the range. It's got to be between there. Now, cal stands for call, add to the lower. So we're going to take the lower strike, 170. We're going to add the net premium, and we get our break even of 179. The last thing we got to do is determine bullish or bearish. The way we do that is a larger premium dominates the position. All right, so those are the 8 things that you need to be able to do on a spread. Okay, so boom. All right, you want to do hedging, but let's give somebody else a chance first.
I appreciate that, Dean. Thank you.
You bet. All right, so